The medical system is extremely broken in the US. That's one thing I would give Canada. They have a better medical system.
The trouble with Canadian healthcare system is if you need to see a specialist, you're basically fucked. In Canada, the wait time is I think a year and a half.
As a woman, you always know and you have intuition and you know when there's like a alarm going off, but they still want to continue giving to this fantasy and think, oh, it's gonna be different for me and it's not gonna happen and all this stuff. We see certain signs, you know, like when I've been cheated on in a relationship, Cristina, I have seen it coming a mile away and I was like, this person's gonna cheat. Where is our accountability to make sure we protect ourselves? Why are we not doing right by ourselves? Why don't we have enough self-esteem, enough self-worth? You go missing on me twice, the third time I'm dumping your fucking ass. Like, we're done. Like, losing your number, I don't give a shit who you are. I don't care how important you are. I'm done with your shit. Hi guys, we're back for another episode of Biohack-it. And I made a promise to you guys, I'm gonna bring back some of my favorite guests to do another round. And so obviously we're bringing back Cristina Cataman. She's here. She's back for round 2 of controversy with me on Biohack-it. So thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you for inviting me. We couldn't stay out of trouble for too long, right?
I know.
We were like, let's stir some more shit up.
The last episodes on your podcast and mine stirred so much shit. So we're like, hey, let's do it all over again.
Isn't it crazy how you speak your mind? Just a little bit. You're not even saying anything. And then everybody just starts to like.
No. And I'm going to talk about what happened on your episode via that one reel that went viral. And we're going to get into that. But before we get into that, I wanted to start off with a few. I thought this time what we should do is take a couple of like hot topics on the news and give our version or commentary on what we think is actually going on. So we're going to start right away with the birth control medical gaslighting article that I felt came out in the Washington Post. Those women are getting off the birth control pill amid misinformation. So I don't know how women telling you about their signs and symptoms is misinformation because it's their bodies, but I wanted to hear what you thought about this.
I did a reaction video to that. And, you know, the Washington Post they've been peddlers of misinformation themselves. So I found it very ironic that they wrote an article and put it in the headline that there's misinformation. I kind of didn't really care that much about it until I found out that they went after, in that article, my favorite app that I've been using for a long time and the co-founder of that app, Brittany Martinez. And I was like, okay, this is very interesting. What did they say about her? And they basically just, you know, started to point out political leanings in a health issue, right? It's supposed to be a health issue, and they're pointing out political leanings or affiliations or whatever that may be. Even though I haven't really particularly heard, you know, Brittany herself publicly talk about her political views per se, right? She's talking about it from a health perspective. And just the tone of the article and how they wrote about her, you know, they pointed out on numerous occasions that she's not a medical professional. And then before that, they were like calling out another influencer who was talking about cycle syncing and pointing out again that she's not a medical professional.
Right.
So they emphasized a couple of things. They gaslit women who were publicly speaking, not even against birth control, but they were raising awareness, just signs and symptoms. That pissed me off. And then the other thing that pissed me off was that they made it into a political thing. Like they made sure to emphasize that, you know, whoever invested in the app was a conservative billionaire, you know, and I'm thinking like, what if the investor was a liberal? Would you have pointed out, you know, like just those little things that I've picked up. So it pissed me off that we're having a very serious health problem be politicized to this extent. And all of a sudden, if you question anything or if you bring this up as a potential, you know, problem that medical professionals aren't really concerned with, or they're pushing it on you a little too much, you are a far-right extremist.
Right.
That pissed me off a lot. And I did a reactionary video about that. I mean, I think I've told you about my experience with birth control. I took it for 7 years when I moved to Canada. I went to a doctor. I was way too young to even, you know, think to ask anybody else. I just went to a doctor. I had breakouts. I never had breakouts in my life. Throughout my teen years, I was like that, you know, 1 in a whatever million girl who had like porcelain skin. I was very lucky.
And still do.
Thank you so much. But I come to Canada and all of a sudden within the first couple of weeks, my skin starts to break out. Like I start to get acne. And who knows what, you know, I changed the climate. I moved from a fairly, you know, seasonal region to Siberia pretty much. I moved to Alberta, right? Like the air is dry. It's ridiculously cold. I just went through obscene amounts of stress because I moved by myself. None of those questions were asked. He just said, wait, are you on birth control? Because I went to see a doctor for my acne.
Right.
And he immediately said, are you on birth control? And I said, no. And he's like, oh, why not? Let me prescribe you one. And the only health problem or side effect that he advised me of was blood clots. That's it. There was no talk of mental problems that you will inevitably experience on birth control. There was no talk of all sorts of other issues and hormonal imbalance that you will experience, which I'm not talking about just myself. I've talked to so many other women in my life who have had these same experiences. Endocrine system disruption, just all sorts
weight
of problems. Fluctuations. You're psychotic on it sometimes, right?
And there's studies that show that when you're on birth control versus not is also how you can pick your partner.
Yes.
And so it affects you in so many different ways, but they don't want to. And I think this goes back to what I wanted to say was I think big pharma is playing a really heavy hand in media and what comes out, which is in benefit to them versus not. So you have the big involvement of big pharma. And the other thing is, I feel everything is extremely politicized when it comes to this country, when it comes to what is supposed to be free press and it's supposed to be free, but they heavily influence what's being published and not. And I think a lot of these media channels that are taking this extremely woke approach that I'll go into as well, feel like shitting on the other side is a way to do things, even if the other side is doing great work, or if it doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. If you want to invest in a business because you think it's good, then you invest in that business, you know? But I think everything in America has become very polarizing, which is one of the big things I speak about. And the problem that I have here, it's like you're either with us or against us. Mm-hmm. And that approach doesn't leave any room for dialogue, openness, because you're so scared of being canceled and shut down. And it doesn't allow you to have an objective conversation, be like, hey, we can both agree to disagree on certain things.
Yeah.
Because everyone has different set of priorities, right? Not everyone will have the same set of priority based on experience, based on their background, based on what they affiliate with, associate with, I would say. But it's very hard to do that here.
Yeah. It's still easier than in Canada, I will tell you that.
Okay. So
I keep saying that.
Yeah. I was going to say, what is your viewpoint of that? Is it easier to talk about things here versus
100%. From my experience in United States versus Canada right now, and listen, I'm very grateful for everything that I've done there, for, for the time that I've had there. But in Canada right now, it is so incredibly hard to have any kind of conversation because people aren't open to it. Everyone's afraid of saying stuff. Here, I find, in general, Americans, they're actually a lot more blunt. Like they're a lot more courageous when it comes to expressing their views. And it's honestly refreshing. And I don't know if it's everywhere like that or if it's just because we're currently in Florida and people in Florida maybe are that way. But even when I was in California, to be honest with you, it's a whole other world from here. But people were still a lot more open and receptive to having these conversations. In Canada, people are so afraid to say something to.
And why do you think is it because of a external backlash? Is there consequences if they say something? Like what is the worst that could happen? Because I want to try to understand that a little bit more.
I think it comes down to, honestly, now that you asked that question, at first I was going to say because of the, certain policies that the government is pushing, but you guys have similar things being pushed.
Yeah.
You're still able to push back. You're still able to have these conversations. I think it might come from the underlying culture that you have in US versus Canada. We're similar in many ways, but I feel like it goes all the way down to even the fact that you guys fought for freedom from the British, right? You were like, this is America, we're free. Canada is independent, but we're still very much in the British way of doing things, if that makes sense. So I think inherently Americans are a little bit more intense about things, if that makes sense. To me, in a more that's a positive thing, actually. I know a lot of people might disagree with me, but I think it's a positive thing because there's nothing worse than people actually on a societal level being afraid to speak their mind and afraid to speak their opinions. You guys still have that, freedom of speech more or less happening here, right?
Do you know
still
what's
trying
so
to cultivate
funny
it.
you said about the British thing? But when I spend time, and I'll go back to like London, I'll take London as a major, obviously, city in comparison to other major cities. I feel people in London tend to speak their mind and have very like, debate is very common in English culture. Debate is a center of like, hey, we're going to debate each other. It's taught at schools, it's taught at universities. It's healthy, actually. And people can have very varying opinions sitting on a table and talk about stuff. Whereas America, I think, is a little bit more polarizing in this whole thing. You're with us or you're against us. Like if you're a conservative and I'm a liberal, it's not going to work. So I feel that it's almost funny that you're saying that Canada has that and it's learned that from the British. When you actually go to the UK, you can have very contradicting opinions.
But how long were you there?
You know me, I'm always on the hunt for ways to level up my health game. And let me tell you, I've learned that when it comes to overall wellness, all roads lead to the gut. 70% of the human immune system resides in the gut, making it a crucial factor in overall health. That's why I'm thrilled to introduce to you our newest partner, Jonah, the most advanced microbiome company on the market. If you're like me, always looking at ways to optimize your health and well-being, you're going to love this product. Jonah isn't just another health app. It's a cutting-edge AI platform that analyzes your microbiome to unlock your body's full potential. Imagine having a personal health detective that dives deep into your gut to uncover the root cause of your symptoms. That's Jonah for you. They use state-of-the-art technology to get a comprehensive picture of your gut health. This isn't science fiction. It's a personalized model of your biology that helps predict how different factors affect your health. Personalized nutrition recommendations. Based on your unique microbiome profile, Jonah provides tailored dietary advice to optimize your health and enhance longevity. Whether you're aiming to boost your energy, improve your digestion, or simply feel your absolute best, Jonah is your new secret weapon. It's like having a team of microbiome scientists in your pocket working 24/7 to help you achieve your health goals. Ready to experience the precision of wellness? Visit Jonah, Jona.health today and start your journey towards optimal health. 17 years.
And how long would you move here?
10 years. I've lived here for 10 years. I was there for 16 to 17 years.
Because the British also strike me, to be honest with you, at least before, a lot more like, even their humor, right?
Oh, they're super sarcastic.
They'll go like ruthless on you, right? But I wonder if it's still the same, because I know that things have changed there quite a bit and they also have had quite a few.
I think Brexit was an absolute shit show and, it's really changed the dynamic of the place. But I think that last time I was there over Thanksgiving and stuff, I felt like I could still talk about things a lot more openly than over here. If you say something off on social media, they'll cancel you or something else might happen. Opinions are not really allowed as openly. But yes, America is definitely the land of the free and it's definitely the land of opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we have the full freedom that this country was built on and stands for, because there's a lot of, whether it's on social media, they limit what you can post and not, or, you can get shadow banned and all this stuff. So I do think there's still a lot of policing that's going on. It's just not as open. And this is supposed to be the land of utmost, freedom of speech.
Mm-hmm.
You're allowed that. That's your right. But I don't think we're fully allowed to practice that and execute that, because I think if we did exercise that, I think people would actually be scared of what comes out. And you saw that with the last election. And I think it was Mark Zuckerberg has actually come out and said that, yes, we did, lower the views on some posts and kind of like, play around a little bit with the algorithm based on what it was. He's come out in court and said that.
Right.
So
the whole
how much
Twitter
freedom?
thing.
So how much freedom do we really have? Better than most countries, but still, are we really doing what's right by the standard of this country, which it was set up to do? I think what America, and I wanted your opinion on this. I know that you and I spoke about this at dinner the other day, that America offers one thing that I will give full credit for that no other country offers, which is the ability to make anything you want of yourself in this country.
It's like I said that on my podcast just the other day, actually. It's like a never-ending music festival. Like everybody's just themselves. Everywhere you go, you can do whatever you want.
There's space for everything.
There's space for everything, yeah.
And so based on that, I do think, I personally think media should not be involved in politicizing,
For sure.
Non-political pieces. This was a health and wellness article. It had nothing to do with politics. So
you would think.
Yeah. But they get involved. And I do think that the lobbying that things like Big Pharma do is trickling into every single aspect of our life. And I think the medical system is extremely broken in the US.
Yeah.
That's one thing I would give Canada. They have a better medical system.
See, I don't know if they do. I really don't know if they do. Everybody thinks that, and everybody says like, "Oh, you guys have free healthcare." First of all, it's not free.
No, it's not.
We pay
for
a ton of taxes.
Yeah,
I think it was something like 50% of our taxes go towards healthcare. The trouble with Canadian healthcare system is, sure, if you need to see a doctor, anyone could go see a doctor if you have a health card. But if you need to see a specialist, you're basically fucked. Like the wait time to, what's that really common one? ACL?
Okay. ACL surgery.
We were just talking to somebody the other day here. We asked this guy, he needed one, and he's like, oh, I got it within 2 weeks here in the States. In Canada, the wait time is, I think, a year and a half.
But what if you wanted to pay out of pocket or
You
say,
can't.
hey,
You can't. So I'll give you an example of what happened to me. That was the first time because I didn't know that was the case. Because I was like, oh, I live in Canada. It's free healthcare. I had an ear infection. It was like 7 years ago. We went to Mexico. I got hit by a wave. I got an ear infection. Yeah. It was hurting like, and I came back to Canada. We were living in Calgary at that time. And I was on the phone with my mom. My mom was a doctor back home. And she says, listen, you need to immediately go see I'm really proud of myself for being able to pronounce this word, otorhinolaryngologist, ear, nose, and throat specialist. And I was like, okay. So I go in to see a general practitioner, because that's how it works. You always go and see a general practitioner, just like a walk-in clinic. And I tell her about what's happening. And she's like, oh, no worries. I'm going to put you on antibiotics and, have a great day. And I was like, okay, can you actually please write me a referral so that I can go see a specialist for this? And she's like, why would you need a specialist? And I'm like, well, I would just like to see a specialist so that, he or she takes a look into my ear. And even if it's all good, just to confirm that. But I would really like to go see a specialist. And she said, you don't need to go see a specialist. I told you everything's going to be fine. Just take these antibiotics. And I said, okay, but like, what does it cost you to write me a referral? I don't get it. Like, what, And she literally did this. She looked at her watch. She said, listen, I have to run. And I was like, okay, then write me a referral fast and then you can go and I can go. I got really mad. I was like, what do you mean you can't write, So she finally writes me a referral. She's like, okay, fine. Here you go. So I was supposed to call them the next day. I call them the next day and they tell me it was like a clinic of these specialists that I thought this is how it's going to work. I'm going to call them, I'm going to go see them as fast as possible. They call me the next day. They say, okay, let us take a look at our schedule. They wrote down my information. The next day they call me back. This was April. They call me back from that clinic and they say, we can schedule you in on August 25th. And I was like, but I have an ear infection right now. And they're like, that's the soonest we can get you in. So that's the problem with Canadian healthcare system. You can pay to get into see a specialist here. You can't do that in Canada.
So maybe the British have it right then, because they have the NHS and they have two systems. Okay, so you have, because I had both. You have the NHS, which the government pays for and stuff and comes out of your taxes and all that stuff. But then you also have a private end to things if you choose that. So you can say, hey, I'm going to go to the NHS walk-in. Yes, there are long wait times. It takes a minute. It might take a minute to see somebody, but there's a huge private sector that they have that if you want, like the American sector, if you want to go in to see a specialist, you can pay out of pocket. And there's also they have things like Bupa, which is global healthcare insurance or whatever. So you can use that to go towards certain practitioners or doctors or specialists or whatever it may be.
So this is really interesting because this conversation keeps on popping up anytime there's elections in Canada, because there's always somebody who wants to run and implement a two-tier system. I was having this conversation. So Alex, my husband, and I were very avid capitalists. Yeah. We're, just leave us alone. Let us make money. By making our lives better, we'll make everybody else's lives better. We'll give, all that kind of stuff. We had this conversation with some of our friends in Canada who are straight up. After that conversation, I realized you guys are bloody communists. You're literally communists. Yeah. And we asked them that. What if we have a two-tier system and the basic healthcare level for everybody gets better, but you also have, if you have the funds to pay and you want to see a specialist right away, you can do that as well. And they said, no.
But and why? What is there? No, yeah.
And they couldn't explain it. They were just like, well, no, that's unfair to the people who can't afford it. So in that moment, I realized that there's a lot of jealousy. There's a lot of jealousy towards people who can afford something. And instead of thinking to yourself, hey, maybe, we'll make it better for everybody, but you will also have this other, division, so to speak, in medical system that you could pay into to see it. No, that's not an option, because how somebody is going to have the money to pay it and somebody else won't have the money to pay it. So it's the whole idea of equity, which is ridiculous. I don't believe in equity. Equality is not the same as equity.
Absolutely.
Equity is, I read that in a book recently. I'm going to have to remember which one. This is not my quote, so don't credit me for it. But equity is making everybody's, how did it go? Making everybody, making the handicapped people feel better by cutting everybody else's legs off. That was the quote from the book. And I was like, damn, that's actually very true,
But I think a lot of that agenda almost underhandedly is trying to be pushed here in the US as well.
Yeah.
And that I feel is the danger of things, because I agree with you. I don't think it should be based on, hey, everyone should be equal across the board. Equality in many ways is super important, right?
Yes.
But equity, like you're saying, you should get what you can pay for. But there should be in this country, I do think America needs a system for people who cannot afford things. And what does that system look like? So healthcare being provided to those people at an affordable price point or through the government. We already pay so much in taxes. My biggest irritation is, where the hell are our tax dollars going?
Right.
And why are we not building a bigger, better system? But the problem is, it's not about the tax dollar situation. The whole system needs to be readjusted, remade in order for, this to get allocated and taken care of. But because the lobbies in the US are so strong, I don't see that ever happening. Because the lobbies play such a powerful role in what actually happens, and they're making so much money out of this. Like pharma makes so much money from this system that's been put in place for so many years now. I don't see it being able to shift no matter who comes into power. I don't care who says they're going to change the system when they come into power. And, they tried to roll out Obamacare, which, was helpful to some people, but how far could it go? And the next guy came and he reversed it. So to some extent, I think it has a lot more to do with, it doesn't matter who's running the country. It has to do with who's paying and who's lobbying.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Who really has the control?
Who really has the power, right? Yeah. And I think a lot of times you get people in office who are essentially figureheads, but they're not the ones actually making the decisions about anything. And, they have certain set systems they have to follow. They might promise you things. And we spoke about this at dinner the other day. People running for office can promise things. That doesn't mean they have to deliver on it.
Of course.
So you're kind of blindsided, and they make promises and then we don't keep them accountable over the next 4 years or however long their term is. And that's where we end up in a mess.
Yeah.
Because there's no accountability.
Right. And I don't really know how to fix it, to be honest with you. Like, if you were to ask me, these are all great ideas, and we're saying all of these, are I guess our ideas and certain solutions, but I really don't know how to fix it.
No.
I still love living here. I love living in North America. But there are certain things that I'm like, I don't know how to fix it. I honestly don't.
Listen, I think every place, and I'll say this, that I've lived in and I've had experiences, has a lot of pros and cons to offer. I think, like I said in the beginning, America is the land where dreams are made. You can make something of yourself. You can create something. It can take off. The growth that can happen in your career in America is next to none.
And the people, you guys have really, really amazing people here. Honestly.
I mean, we said this at dinner. We have some of the smartest people in the world, and then we have some of the dumbest people in the world.
The extremes. It's got to be extreme,
you have some of those brilliant minds that live in this country, and they're so smart that you're like, what?
Yeah.
And then you have some people, and I'm like, what? This is not happening. Or you did not just say that. What is going on here? So it's polarizing. It's even polarizing in terms of intellect.
Right.
Right. And it's brilliant. But I do think the US has a lot more to offer than a lot of the other, I would say, North America for sure.
Yeah.
That what's going on. But I also think that's what makes America makes it unique.
Yes.
But I do think that I don't know these bigger problems that we have in whether it's foreign policy, whether it's on, how we're doing healthcare is really going to change by somebody coming to office. And unless somebody has, and I don't know how they can take on the entire system, because the system is so much bigger than them.
Yeah. Sometimes I want to live in ignorance and just be like, hey, who cares, But then other times you're like, but we got to have these conversations. We got to brainstorm.
And I think we owe it. I think, Cristina, women like us who are well-read and, able to take risks in conversation and have, disruptive conversations and kind of think of ways to disrupt the system. We owe it to our communities and other women who follow us and, women we interact with to have these kind of conversations and say, listen, you might not agree with us. We don't know everything. We're not the experts, but we're willing to at least investigate and, kind of scratch the surface a little bit more.
Be curious.
Explore what could that look like and have that, because a lot of people don't even want to do that. And a lot of women don't even want to do that.
Right. And again, I think in your country here, people are a lot more willing to disagree with one another, at least face to face, than at least how I feel currently in Canada. But I feel like it's a blessing to be surrounded by people with whom I can genuinely disagree. Like we had a disagreement, kind of a debate at the dinner table just the other day. It was awesome. I loved it. It got like heated for a moment there. And then like we hugged it out in the, afterwards and we went home. There's nothing wrong. Like we're given this amazing thing called intellect that allows us to think critically and think for ourselves. We live in a place where we can do that because there are places in the world where you cannot do that. Like I don't think they can think critically that much in North Korea, right? Like it's just,
or China.
Yeah, so we have this privilege to be able to do that. Why are we not doing more of that? Just sit down and have a conversation.
Because I think that's why it goes into my second topic that I wanted to discuss. So this whole idea of cancel culture, right? It exists online. People will bully you behind like screens. I mean, they will say things that they don't know much about, but they want to have an opinion and they, want to cancel you. And then it just draws this massive wave. And I think they also do it in person. They try to cancel people for having a difference in opinion that may not agree with theirs, or they belittle you. And, they're like, okay, maybe if you read a little bit more, you could come over to my side. And that's very degrading and belittling. So I think that being heavily inbred, especially it trickles down, I primarily think through social media. It makes people nervous about speaking their mind because they don't know what's going to be on the other side.
100%.
One area of science that is extremely exciting is supplements, but is also an area that creates a lot of confusion. Today, I want to talk about a supplement that's been a game changer for me. Seeds DSO1 Daily Synbiotic. This little powerhouse is packed with 24 clinically and scientifically studied strains. And get this, it's engineered with something called Viacap, which helps it survive the treacherous journey through your digestive system. This means it actually reaches your gut alive and ready to work its magic. Since I started taking DSO1, I've noticed a lightness in my stomach that I hadn't felt in years. It's like my gut and I are finally on the same page. And bonus, my skin's been looking clearer and more vibrant too. What I love about Seed is their commitment to science. They're not just throwing together some random bacteria and calling it a day. They've got numerous clinical trials published in top scientific journals. So really you have access to some of the best minds giving you the top science. And let's talk convenience. I just pop my DSO1 capsule in the morning and I'm good to go. Now I know what you're thinking, another supplement, but trust me, this isn't just another pill. It's a scientifically validated way to support your digestive health, reinforce the gut barrier integrity, and promote a healthy immune system through the gut immune axis. Ready to give your gut the love it deserves? Go to seed.com/biohack-it and use code 25biohack-it for 25% off your first month of DSO1. That's 25% off at seed.com/biohack-it, code 25biohack-it.
It's honestly the worst, I think, like right now, the worst in the online world that can happen. If you really like break it down, at least that's what I used to think, that cancel culture is just like, well, who's trying to cancel you? And what is it exactly? It's like a bunch of angry people in the comments just yelling at you. But I've known people with whom it actually became a problem. Like, they will go after your job. They'll go after your business. They'll do like really evil shit, which is just insane to me. I mean,
they'll take it to another level. I know this one influencer, she had this, she was a social influencer and she had this healthcare company, and whether you agreed with her approach to things or not, there was this group of women who came after her it went viral, and they would attack her and they would send hateful messages to her kids, go after her on social media, like come up with, you can disagree with somebody and what they're practicing and if you have been harmed by them, by all means, like that's something you can take care of, and if you want to press legal action, but you don't attack somebody openly, I believe, and their family, and go after them in that public way. I don't think it's correct. I would never do that to somebody. I don't agree with that. And even if I see sometimes things on social media that I don't agree with, somebody posts something and I feel a little triggered, I'm like, what? That's completely incorrect, or you're completely two-faced and stuff. I don't spend my time giving those opinions because honestly, it is not my place.
Because you have a life to live. You just carry on with your day.
I'm not going to sit there and correct you or school you because I disagree with the way you're thinking.
I can either learn from you.
When you're attacking somebody.
Yeah. I can either learn something from you if I find your opinion. Like I have friends with whom, again, I very much disagree with. But I'm like, okay, is there anything I can learn from you? Or is there something that we can maybe just talk about and learn from each other, you know? So I can either learn from you or I can just agree to disagree and move on with my life, right?
The only time I do comment is if somebody comes directly at me and makes a comment or says, kind of wants to talk about something I've said. And then I'll be like, okay, let's open this up for debate. But can I please ask where this is coming from? Or like, this is the facts versus not. That I will definitely do. That's just by personality. I'm like, bring it.
Iman Hasan is like,
bring it, guys.
Bring it.
I'm ready. I'm ready for it. But I will not go out of my way and comment on other people's stuff because quite frankly, I have better things to do. And nobody needs another keyboard warrior. The two things I think are going on right now is you have these like keyboard warriors who just want to start shit without having a full understanding of a situation. And this happened to me actually on this reel we posted from your episode that somebody went ham and I think this is what I'd said in the episode with you. I'd said that after living in all the places that I have and having all the experiences that I've had, I have to say one thing, that I think the UK is one of the most tolerant and diverse cities compared to the US. And that was a comparison I made because let's say the most diverse and dynamic city in the US is like New York and then let's say LA, right? And I said from my experience, and then forget my experience. You can Google this. Like it comes up on Google, but this person started fighting with me in the comments saying, no, Miami, and I love this place, I live here, Miami is more diverse and dynamic and tolerant than London. And at that stage, I was just like, what are you even talking about? And then I asked this person, I was like, after they tried to fight with me in 20,000 comments, I said, have you even been to London? And they said, no. And I said, okay, I'm just going to like throw, like, I just don't even know what to do. But that is what happens. You have these keyboard warriors online who make comments and references and have opinions about things and places that they have never even visited or lived or had the experience at, number one. So they can't really be like, okay, I lived in both places, I can understand what you're saying. Or okay, I disagree with you because I've lived in both places and I actually don't agree with you. This wasn't my experience. That's fine. One. Two, you have these soapbox preachers. It's another phenomenon that basically goes on. These people who want to like preach and scream and this is how it should be and stuff, when we all have free will and we're allowed to make up our own opinions based on our human experience and what we go through and learn and, you know, our experience as human beings in different set situations. So we need to keep that in mind when talking about things, that we need to understand where someone's coming from, their perspective based on their experience, what they've been through, their traumas if they've had any, and why they're coming up with this.
Yeah. But you're sounding like a reasonable person right now. And that unfortunately is not fashionable these days, Iman.
No, not at all. It's like and it's this whole thing. And I saw this debate and this reel freaking blew up. I think it had like so many thousands of comments in it. People were fighting in it. There's another podcast episode I did with a friend of mine, Ben Azadi, and he talked about like seed oils in it, and people went ham. Like we had over like 1,000 comments of people fighting with each other. It's like, you know, you can have a difference in opinion over here. Like, no.
It's crazy how much power this like barrier in a form of a screen gives to people, because they would never say that to you in real life. But now I almost had this idea that like everybody on social media should be verified. Like, you know, that you shouldn't be allowed to use Instagram or, you know, whatever platform we may be talking about. You shouldn't be allowed to use it unless you have a picture of yourself in it. Like the profile picture is your face. Because a lot of these keyboard warriors they have no picture. They have a picture of a banana or their cat or whatever.
Or other people's pictures.
And they can just, you know, talk shit. But if you're verified, that was like the idea that I had. I'm sure I'm not the only one who had it. But if you have the picture of yourself, your face, and your name, and if you are not willing to give that to social media, don't be on social media.
This brings me to a very interesting situation that took place online talking about social media canceling. The Kate Middleton situation. Oh, yes. So this poor woman, and I was watching it online. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with people? So I see it online, you know, she's not in the public eye. She's not appearing at certain things. And it went as far as I found this one account. I have to remember who it was, but there were these two sisters and they made their entire following be like, where's Kate Middleton? Where's Kate Middleton? So every day they post a new reel or
account.
But every single picture on that whole feed was where's Kate Middleton? And they would come up with all these scenarios. Oh, William and her are getting a divorce. Oh, this is happening or that's happening and stuff. And then I had some people I follow who are very credible, whether it's in television or online, who were also making snide comments and remarks. And I sat there and this is before we found out she had cancer. And I sat there and I was like, firstly, what the fuck is wrong with you people? People, in my opinion, I think, no matter if you're a celebrity, if you're royalty, if you're the public eye, you are allowed to have also a private life. And you should be allowed to choose to share what you want to and don't have to share what you want to. Yes, being a celebrity and being in the public eye comes with a set of responsibilities and people are going to wonder. However, you should be allowed to also take private time and have privacy to yourself. And especially this poor woman, it turned out she had cancer and has 3 little kids. Maybe she wanted to take her time to break the news to her kids. And the world and the internet and Americans weren't allowing her that.
But then I also saw somebody, like when she came out and she said she had cancer, people were speculating that maybe she's lying. It got to that. That's when I was like, wait a minute. What's happening? Because I told you, remember, like the news of, you know, pop culture or whatever you want to call it gets to me a little bit later, I feel like. I don't know why, but I'm just like late to the trends always. And I found out that she had cancer and I was like, oh my gosh, you know,
poor
that's
thing.
Poor thing. That's, you know, it's so sad. I hope she feels better. And then I saw a couple of people online making videos about, oh, does she really have cancer? And I was like, wait, what? So that's how I started to look into it. And, you know, I asked you even earlier today, I was like, what was exactly happening prior to that? So it's, you know, it's crazy to me. 2 things. First of all, if you're in the public eye, and I'm sure you experienced it as well, you are expected to give an opinion on every single issue that's in the news. And if you don't, you're wrong. You know?
How dare you not use your platform for good?
If you
speak
exactly, how dare you not express the opinion that I want you to express?
Absolutely.
Right?
Because it's your page.
Exactly. So there's that. And then there's also this, you know, idea that people have because they're so preoccupied with this public figure's life. They're more preoccupied with their life than they are with their own. So they feel the need to just, you know, bash them online if they don't do something that they expect them to do. Because all of a sudden they didn't have Kate Middleton to talk about. She disappeared and it was like, well, what do we talk about now? What, like, am I supposed to be preoccupied with my own lives? Like celebrities are, I could talk about Pedre probably a little bit because there's some shit going on there, you know, but like, but they literally probably don't have a life. So when their public figure that they talk about all the time is not in the public eye, all of a sudden, that's probably what happens. They're like, ooh.
I think America is going through a huge mental health crisis. And there's obviously a spectrum of like what mental health, you know, issues range. And I think social media plays into that. People who have an unhealthy relationship with social media.
Yeah.
And it becomes like a codependency coping tool and all that stuff. Like they take it. And that doesn't mean just because you have a following. There are people who just use the platform behind closed profiles who, you know, have a range of, you know, mental health issues going on as well. And it just takes things too far. And in the case of her, you saw it, like people like got unhinged about this whole thing. And then I think during her announcement as well that she made, they're like, oh, but there are no flowers blooming in London at this time. Where did she shoot this and whatever? Okay. But it goes back to the thing. 1, people need to respect people's boundaries on and offline. 2, no matter who you are, if you're a public figure, you're royalty, it does not matter. You are allowed to have certain privacy, especially when it comes to you having a family and having children and how you relay the information to your family, that there should be a system of privacy. And I think it's mind-boggling that celebrities or royalty have to come on and say, please allow me this privacy. What do you mean, please allow me this privacy? It's your human right to have privacy. Why do we have to make a public statement asking people to allow you your privacy? And people are still invasive little assholes.
Yeah. Yeah, it should just be, hey, I need privacy. I know that it might be to you a huge ask because I've been in the public eye, but I need my privacy. I need to deal with some stuff, right?
And even then, people don't give it. Yeah. It's like shocking to me. So where is the respect for healthy boundaries and being like, hey, if somebody's saying something, respect it. And also maybe you should busy yourself with something else or do something else. I think the thing about, I wish I could get to the point that yes, if you're not a real person with a real account, you shouldn't be able, you know, verified, be on social media. But I wish it could go a step further and say, hey, they're going to take this like mental health test. And if you fail, you're not allowed access to social media.
Yeah.
Like I wish we could go as far as doing that. Obviously it would not happen, but
no, I agree with you because I
like,
think
it's not going to be good for your mental health.
Yeah, it's not. And for some people, like I always talk about this, that if I go on social media and I don't feel inspired, I'm going to leave, or entertained, inspired, entertained, or educated. You know, like those three.
Totally.
And for some, maybe I'm in the wrong mental state. Maybe I'm in a phase of my cycle where I'm a little bit more sensitive and I see somebody doing something and I'm like, oh, you know, I wanted to do that. I haven't done that yet. And I'm being too hard on myself. I'm closing it and I'm not returning until I feel better, you know?
Yeah.
Because it can get to you. And if it's getting to you, if what you're getting out of social media is going online and you feel angry or you feel like you're missing something in life or you feel this like sense of jealousy towards people, don't be on social media. Get off social media. The prime example of that is working out. Like I cannot tell you the amount of times I post a lot of workouts because I want to motivate people, because I started working out from an inspiration I had. I followed this mother of 5 kids from Russia, and she looked phenomenal. Like that woman looked fabulous.
5 kids.
5 kids. She had
Warrior.
5 kids.
5 kids.
She was
naturally.
And she was really open. She had like a nose surgery. She did a lot of fillers, Botox, but she didn't have any other surgeries. She said, I literally am just working out like crazy and I'm eating really well.
Insane.
I might have a surgery later on when this gives out or whatever it gives in. But I currently it's just working out and nutrition. And I was so inspired by her. I was like, wow, this woman has 5 kids. I don't have kids. And I'm not working out. What the fuck are we doing? You know, so I actually genuinely started working out because I got motivated by her. So I was like, this is awesome. I'm going to try to motivate people.
Exactly. You're like, wow, you're such an inspiration.
I'm going to motivate people. But the amount of times I've gotten messages when I post something about a workout from people saying you're promoting unhealthy beauty standards and you're making me feel bad. Because
that is on you.
And I'm like, wow, really? Am I making you feel bad? Maybe that's a good thing that I'm making you feel bad. Maybe that'll motivate you to get your ass up and go work out.
So the amount of benefits from working out, moving your body, not only your mental health, your physical health, chronic disease, aging, how you age, is so imperative. I can't believe that people are like, oh, this unhealthy beauty, it's unhealthy health standards.
Yeah, unhealthy beauty standards.
This episode is brought to you by Biohack-it. Are you tired of tossing and turning at night, unable to quiet your racing mind? 4 out of 5 Americans aren't getting enough magnesium, and it's affecting their sleep and overall well-being. I used to lie awake for hours worrying about my to-do list for the next day. It was a vicious cycle that left me exhausted and unproductive. That all changed when I discovered Magnesium Breakthrough. Since adding it to my nightly routine, I've been falling asleep much faster, staying asleep much longer, and waking up refreshed. It's been a game changer for my sleep quality and energy levels. What sets Magnesium Breakthrough apart is its unique blend of all 7 forms of magnesium. Unlike other supplements that offer just 1 or 2 types, this comprehensive formula supports everything from stress management to muscle recovery. Experience the power of optimal magnesium levels for yourself. Go to biooptimizers.com/biohack-it and use promo code biohack-it to save 10% on your first order. Subscribe for even bigger discounts and free gifts, ensuring your monthly supply is always guaranteed. Don't let sleepless nights hold you back. Try Magnesium Breakthrough today.
Unhealthy beauty standards. I've gotten messages like that before. I, of course, get a lot of like, oh my God, thank you so much for motivating me. I need to get up. I need to actually do something. But there are those, for sure, that are just like sitting on their couch.
How dare you post your healthy lifestyle, Cristina?
How dare I?
That you're having to get up in the morning early and actually go move your body. But how dare you?
How dare I? I know. I just...
This brings me to talking about health. What do you think about the whole Huberman thing?
Oh my God. Well, my first reaction, to be totally honest with you, was, damn, is this proof of concept? Because if this brother could juggle like 5 women,
6?
then
was
maybe
it 5 or 6? I think it was 6.
6?
Wasn't it?
Now it's 6?
Was it 5 or 6? Jackie, how many women was it? 5 or 6? Fact checker in the corner. Huberman was dating 5 women or 6. We're going to do a fact check over here. You know how Joe Rogan has a fact checker in the corner?
Yeah.
Jackie's my
I love
fact
that.
checker.
Yeah,
Jackie, fact check.
At least.
Oh, it was 5. Sorry, not 6.
Like, first of all, has this been confirmed?
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you. Has this been confirmed true? Like, for sure?
So some of the women, I think you and I spoke about this, came out and said yes. But this is my kind of takeaway. And, you know, for women listening to this, I'm going to give you kind of my insight. Firstly, this guy posts content about wellness. He's giving you great free wellness content. The guy, looking at him, I don't think you would ever say, oh, this guy's a relationship expert. He's like some relationship guru. And I personally think Huberman is a good looking nerd, but I think he's a little like, you know, good looking men like that who are very, very smart can be a little bit of narcissistic, right? That's the point. Would I date somebody like that if I was single? No, because I think I would have like more self-worth and I know better, being like, this is just going to be a shit show. Like this guy's at the height of his career. It's going to be a shit show. You know better. But women, I think, go into this. I don't think I agree with what he did, but I think as a woman, you always know and you have intuition and you know when there's like a alarm going off, but they still want to continue giving to this fantasy and think, oh, it's gonna be different for me and it's not gonna happen and all this stuff. So I think 1 or 2 of the women actually were like, I think one was definitely his serious girlfriend, the main woman in the article. And then the other women thought they were like seriously romantically involved, but I don't really know the kind of full ins and outs of that. I think some of them, yes, it was true that this happened, but I do also want to ask, like, we see certain signs, you know, like when I've been cheated on in a relationship, Cristina, I have seen it coming a mile away and I was like, this person's going to cheat, right? But you're a little bit younger, you need to go through that heartbreak, whatever it happens. But you see it happening. That doesn't justify the men's behavior. That's absolutely incorrect. But I do think as women, we better have to safeguard ourselves.
We sometimes just
put blinders on.
Yeah.
And then I don't agree with coming out. This guy gives great medical advice, right? That's what he's known for. He has a podcast giving you great medical advice. And that is, he interviews amazing people. He's sharing his knowledge. That is what I look towards him for, right? I don't know why you would publicly attack somebody who harmed you. And this goes down to like that whole thing of going after people in such a nasty way.
Especially when they're at the height of their career. I always try to give them
damage them in this way.
Yeah.
And the reverse argument could be, well, Iman, he emotionally damaged these women.
Right.
But financially damaging somebody is very different, you know, and trying to damage their career is very different to emotional. There is a different thing to it. And I want to ask, I don't know how much insight, if you really ask these women and maybe years go by, did you really think, because women have really strong intuition. We're very smart. Yeah. Women are very intuitive and very, very smart. And I don't think there's a single person I know that's been cheated on eventually hasn't looked back and said, I saw that coming.
I saw a sign. I saw a sign. It opened up my eyes.
Yeah.
Well, I also wondered like how, just for curiosity levels, like how much time would he dedicate to each of them, and how, I mean, I don't know, right? Would be maybe worth to sit down in a conversation with them. I'm sure they'll would explain it better, but how much time was he dedicating to each one? And did they ever wonder like, hey, he's not spending, maybe he would just say he's in a lab or whatever because he's a busy doctor, but.
Listen, there was this, during the article, I think I read that he would disappear for 2-3 days on some of them. And they were like, oh, maybe he's busy, leave his dog with somebody. And I was like, that's a sign.
That's a sign, yeah.
Don't you think you should dump a man after he pulls his shit once, twice? You say, hey, don't pull that shit with me again. And then you're still sticking around. So where is the accountability also on the women?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, I can't say that it like bothered me per se. I was just like, this is kind of crazy. You know, if this is true, it's kind of crazy, you know? And the other thing that I wondered, I was like, is the dopamine coming from the ice baths or is it coming from the
and that's another thing. You know what I thought when I saw all this happening, I was like, this guy has spoken publicly about having unresolved childhood trauma. He talks about it. He talks about he's been in therapy all his life. He had a very dysfunctional childhood. He's been going through things, whatever. He's admitted that, right? So you look at it, you know, I'm big on like plant medicine and all this stuff. So looking at it from a place of empathy, this man has openly said, yo, I got issues from my childhood that I'm still processing, and I'm going through them and I'm trying to figure it out, right? Not that that's an excuse for his behavior, but that's a red flag. Mm-hmm. If you get into a relationship with a man that he openly talks about, hey, I've been in therapy, I'm trying to better myself. But if you read between the lines, it says, I have unresolved shit still going on in my life. Then you choose to still date that man. Despite of what he shows you. It's like, you know, there's a difference. People show you who they are. Do you want to believe who they are?
a lot of women, I think, have this sense of like, well, I'm going to save him. You know, like that switch goes on and it's like, oh my gosh, like then, and I'm just speculating here, but I could see if he was open about it, how a switch can go on in a woman.
And they're like, oh, he's opening up to me, being vulnerable to me.
I'm going to be the one who's going to, you know, flip that all around. And
I don't think people should have gone after him publicly at all. I don't think this should be like being a hit piece on him. I don't agree with that. I don't think you go after somebody professionally because they've hurt you in a private capacity. I think private matters have to stay private. And I think, professionals, you keep the two kind of separate. I personally didn't agree with attacking somebody like that. Granted, I don't think it really affected him neither here nor there, but I think where is the accountability in ourselves being like, hey, I've been cheated on. So I'm telling you from my personal experience, I've been cheated on really badly. Like I was in a previous marriage. It was absolutely awful. I would not go after that man publicly because I'm better than that.
Right.
I have more self-respect and you live and you learn and then you move on. Right.
And it's also, I will say though, so I have a friend, Nicole Benham, just a wonderful, wonderful girl. She lives in LA. She's so sweet. And I just saw, I didn't actually follow him on Instagram, but I saw, and I laughed so hard. I saw some like video of his being posted and she left a comment and said something along the lines of like, I'm amazed by the ability in this person to quiet the noise. Because he just carried on.
I think you know what he did? The funniest thing I'll tell you is he released the following week after this hit piece came out about the 5 modules or whatever he's released, the 5 episodes he's releasing on sleep. And everyone's like, oh, the 5 episodes, the 5. This man
all the videos and all the memes that are coming out are quite hilarious. Like I've sent
you
a couple
sent me
of reels.
One that was
where he was like, women are looking for kindness in a man. Like it's not even about like success or finances or anything. It's kindness. You have to treat women with respect.
Maybe in his mind, he was trying to give whatever, and I'm not making excuses, but what I'm trying to do with this is, and this is really for the women listening, my takeaway. We are responsible, not the other person. We are responsible for our decisions, right? And I'm teaching, for me, it's a big piece about accountability. So when I have a friend who gets cheated on really badly or something happens, and I always say, did any part of you know that this was going to happen? And their answer eventually, okay, fine, maybe. Yeah, there were some signs. Where's our accountability to make sure we protect ourselves? Mm-hmm. Why are we not doing right by ourselves? Why don't we have enough self-esteem, enough self-worth, enough self to be like, listen, you go missing on me twice, the third time I'm dumping your fucking ass. Like we're done. Losing your number. I don't give a shit who you are. I don't care how important you are. I'm done with your shit. Where is those clear, healthy boundaries? And why are we as women not setting ourselves up for success by having healthier boundaries and setting up healthier parameters, but also at the same time keeping ourselves accountable when we do spot something that's not right versus having a complete mental breakdown when shit hits the fan?
Yeah, taking responsibility. I wonder how much the aspect of his, how successful he is also maybe played into it, right? Maybe those women tried to ignore it because they were like, well, it's Andrew Huberman, like I'm dating Andrew Huberman.
No,
but you know what I was also thinking? Remember when I was here last time, we did a video about red flags and we said if he doesn't post you on social media, alarm.
But a lot of celebrities, and you will see, we spoke about this the other day, I don't see Joe Rogan's wife on, social media. I don't see a lot of other media personalities and stuff. Maybe a lot of women want to be like, hey, I want to remain private. I don't want people coming up to me at the grocery store saying, oh my God, you're so-and-so's wife or girlfriend. Maybe they don't want that. So, and I do think his page is pretty professional. He doesn't have his family on there. Right. He doesn't exactly post his house. It's very much about this is my work and this is what I do and this is my podcast and this medical knowledge that I give you and this is the research that I have. So I don't know.
Yeah, my husband also talked about the fact that, for example, if something like that came out about Joe Rogan, that would have been like really hit hard because Joe Rogan is such a family man. He always talks about, his family and everything.
But Huberman's not doing that.
But Huberman doesn't do that. So my husband's point was I'm still going to listen to him for health advice, even if all of this is true, because
that's not what I go to him for. That's another thing that I'm trying to say. I don't think people follow him thinking he's some kind, gentle soul in a relationship dynamic. I think you go to him and you're like, take it objectively for what it is. The guy's super smart. He's super talented in what he does. He is an authority when it comes to health and wellness. He's interviewing some of the most bright and brilliant minds and having really great debates and conversations around health that is affecting and helping people live healthier, happier lives through their optimizing their health, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
That-
I get, that's, yeah, that's, I
You know
kind
what I
of,
mean?
I kind of feel that. Yeah. I feel like I would probably feel worse if something like that again came out about somebody maybe who I was like listening to on like relationship advice or something
That's different.
like that.
It's relationship
Yeah.
advice. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that you're going to them because they're a relationship expert. So, and I think, listen, sometimes the women stick around. So I'll give you a personal story kind of from my experience. I had this friend, we were super close. We were friends for 11 years and she started dating this guy. And I'm not saying he was like Huberman, but something similar happened to you. So he started dating this guy and I felt a few red flags, but I kind of stayed quiet. And then all of a sudden she calls me one day and she's like, hey, I don't know. He's being a little weird, whatever. I found out this guy while dating she was one of my closest friends at the time, had a simultaneous relationship going on with his ex. So he would sleep with my friend in the morning, whatever. And then later in the afternoon or whatever, he would like go to the dog park or whatever and sleep with this other girl in the car. Okay.
How much sex drive do you have? Like,
Hold on. So this happens. Okay. I'm going to give you like this where I hold women accountable. So, is dating essentially these two women simultaneously. I found the other woman through social media and I kind of got her number and we started speaking and she didn't know anything about my friend. He made her feel like he was still dating her. So kind of sort of a similar sort of situation. I even got the two girls together. They had coffee, whatever. They looked at each other's messages. So it was very real. Like it was very, very real and very, very intense and promises were being made on both ends and things were being said on both ends, whatever. My friend obviously like, I guess she felt, how dare you do this to me? Cussed him out, broke up with him, whatever. After the whole situation kind of happened, something happened between me and her that I need to distance myself from her. And I found out recently that she has started seeing the guy again. So word on the street is, I don't know where it's going to go, where it's going to, last. But supposedly he stopped talking to the other girl and stuff. But where I'm explaining this to you is like women tend to devalue themselves so much. And this is a situation I encourage. So I'm kind of comparing it to the Huberman situation. I feel if any of these women thought that, hey, like maybe we might be able to make a run of this. He's not going to do this to me again. They might actually forgive him because women are so scared on some level of being alone. And if you're older, let's say you're around our age, well, you're still very young, but you're in your like late 30s and 40s, kind of like I am. Women get so scared of ending up by themselves or being alone or whatever it may be, that they will compromise their self-worth and forgive things that most people would think this is fucking unforgivable because.
Yeah. Even younger women too. Like I see that. I've seen that so many times.
And so I think what happened over here, I'm just looking at it and evaluating. I was like, hey, I know somebody on a personal level who's a great girl, by the way, like beautiful girl, super, is basically did this. So
the self-worth is just
correct. So
it has to come from some kind of learned
acceptance of behavior.
Acceptance, yeah.
Oh, and the crazy thing was when this happened to her, she said, oh, I know so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so in relationships. And they said their partner cheated on them in the beginning of the relationship. And I was like, twitching. I'm like, and so that has become our social standard. So we accept shit because it was still early. I'm like, you're 6-7 months in, the guy's asking you to marry him and move him. And I'm like, this is what we're accepting now? I was like, this is where our standard has fallen and this is what you're hearing on the street. Like,
well, and it almost seems like she's like, okay, well, other people get cheated on. So
yeah. So, essentially the end result of me potentially having a partner, potentially having a home, potentially starting a family is okay. And I'm willing to turn a blind eye to this. So I think women are also responsible for how we allow people to treat us, what we're willing to accept and not accept, and what we're willing to sacrifice and not. And I think that's a decision we need to ask ourselves versus just putting it on the other person.
I agree with you. Personal responsibility is something so big and needs to be more fashionable and addressed. I do agree with you because any relationships that have failed around us or for us in the past, if you really look at them, there was a lack of accountability or personal responsibility or willful ignorance of a situation that was happening or you knew was happening. Yeah.
And this brings me to, I wanted to get into the second part of, today was relationships. So you and Alex, I adore you guys together as a couple. I'm so lucky that I get to spend like quality time with both of you and I'm getting to know both of you together. But touch wood, you guys have an amazing, really beautiful relationship.
Thank you.
You guys have been together for 8 years.
10 actually.
10,
coming up to 10 in August this year. Married for...
This episode is brought to you by Timeline Nutrition. Are you ready to unlock the secret to boundless energy and vibrant health, no matter your age? Imagine your body as a bustling city with trillions of tiny power plants, your mitochondria working tirelessly to keep you alive and thriving. But here's the catch. These cellular powerhouses are under constant attack from modern life's invisible enemies, toxins, processed food, and polluted air. As we age, our once effective cellular recycling system starts to slow down, leaving us feeling drained. Enter MitoPure, your cellular fountain of youth. This isn't just another supplement. It's a scientifically backed revolution in a bottle. MitoPure doesn't just mask symptoms, it dives deep into your cells, clearing out the cellular clutter and making room for vibrant, energetic newcomers. Imagine recapturing that youthful spark, the boundless energy, the quick recovery, the mental clarity. That's the MitoPure promise. It's not just about adding years to your life, but life to your years. Don't let another day pass feeling less than your best. Rejuvenate your cells, reclaim your vitality, and age with MitoPure. Visit timeline.com/biohack-it now and use my exclusive code Biohack-it. Your future self will thank you.
2022, almost 2 years, yeah.
So what is your advice? Like, you've gone through a huge career change. You were in the corporate world and you went, to becoming more of a content creator and a social media influencer and all that stuff. And, Alex is essentially, he's a lawyer. So how is that, what are some advice you have, like going through your learnings and lessons as a couple? Because our biggest things are what we learn in our own relationships, right? What are some of the things you've learned that you want to share with women and people or give advice for when it comes to marriage? And, as you grow old together and as you grow together, as I would say it.
I think number one thing is you have to understand whenever you have difficulties and hardship, because you will inevitably have them. This is something that I actually kind of am thinking that I need to speak about more on my social media, because I've realized that I never talk about the struggles that we had as a couple, because I want to keep it private, but at the same time, I feel like if I share more of that, people will relate to it, and they'll because so much of social media, you go on a person's profile and it's like, oh my God, this is a perfect couple. Meanwhile, you had a fight with your husband and you think your relationship is the worst and your husband is, so I want to be mindful of that. But, I think you have to establish from the beginning, or, as fast as you can, if you have hardship and you have difficulties, are you both willing to put in the work to go through it? Because we have had experiences in the past. I'm sure we know other people who have had experiences where you genuinely have just one person working in this relationship and towards solving a problem, and the other one just doesn't give two shits about it. So you have to do that. You have to understand if both of you will be willing to work through problems together and do whatever it takes to bring yourself back to a good place. And also, and this goes again back to personal responsibility and accountability. You really have to only work on yourself. Always. Like whenever something happens, work on yourself and then go to your partner and talk to them about certain changes that need to happen. Because what I've learned is, and I learned this the hard way, I would not blame, but I would go to Alex in certain situations. Like I think, I told you during dinner that we got married and like 3 months later, we're like, almost got divorced because we were just clashing, butting heads, headbutts. What is that? Butting heads. Headbutting. My English is leaving the building. So we were fighting so much, and I realized that instead of me trying to figure out like, okay, what's happening with me? There's some changes going on. I feel something and I feel like these changes need to happen with me first. Instead of doing that, I was like, you're this and this and that, and you need to change this. And he was like, where's this coming from? Like, what's happening with you? Like, why are you blaming me for things I'm doing? And he's so funny. He's always like, I don't receive this criticism. I'm awesome. And that would irritate me even more, right? I'm like, ugh. And then, we would work through it and he'd be like, okay, like I'm willing to change things. And you also have to set an expectation, I feel like, and it's better to do that sooner than later, that you have certain standards and expectations in a relationship, and if they're not met, you just need to sit down and talk about them. Like let your feelings almost to the side for a second and just be very real with one another and communicate. This is what's bothering me. What can we do to change it? Not what can you do to change it? No, you're this, and that. Is there something that I'm maybe doing, the wrong way that you can share with me that we can understand and work on this together? So I think that whole like circle and synergy of working together through problems is what's important. I hope that makes sense.
I think it makes perfect sense. It's really beautiful because I think both people need to be doing the work and you need to be growing together or you will grow apart. Because, you know, listen, you have your own personal aspirations, career, personal stuff, whatever you want to do. So does your husband, your partner, whatever.
Exactly.
If you don't, and this doesn't only apply to male-female relationship. This applies to any romantic relationship, same sex. It does not matter. This is about relationships. Both partners need to be working on their individual selves and collectively together as a couple on things and be aligned with putting in the work. I think you never stop putting in the work in a marriage or in a long-term relationship or serious relationship. I think it never stops. I think there are always ebbs and flows. I think that you need to be honest with, am I projecting my fears on you because I'm scared of failure on my own, or I'm scared of like the change that's happening, or I'm like overwhelmed, or I'm uncertain about certain things for me as an individual. So I'm projecting that onto the relationship. And are you able to hold a space for me? And sometimes your partner will say yes. And sometimes they'll say, I don't have the bandwidth to hold space for you right now, you know? So being able to self-soothe, self-regulate, like keep yourself accountable. But both those things go in tandem, I think, when it comes to having a healthy relationship, both individual work, like you said, and then working on things together as partners.
Yeah. We always talk about this with Alex. Like we rarely yell at each other. I think we've yelled at one another like a few times.
You don't seem like a yeller.
No, but if it starts, all hell breaks loose. Like windows have to be closed because the neighbor's going to be able to hear, you know, like it's just.
What language would you yell in if you yell?
English. but it gets like, you know, and sometimes honestly, like I remember when we yelled at each other, like really yelled at it almost like helped because we let out so much frustration.
Yeah.
But you have to also, like, for example, Alex and I always like talk about how wonderful it is that we never call each other names.
That's amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
I would never be able to, because I had a friend who called her husband a dumbass, and I'm like, why would you call your husband a dumbass?
Why would you say that about him?
I was like, I would never say that about my husband. She was like, oh, you know, it's a young relationship. And I'm like, it's not even a young relationship. I'm not going to call my husband a dumbass because he's not a dumbass. Yeah. And as mad as I can be at him for something, you know, during a fight.
It's a respect thing.
I respect him. He's still the same person. It's just that we're having a problem. This isn't about, you know, anything that I have against him. We have a problem. We have a problem that we need to solve. So I think also that mentality of like, okay, hold on, this is a problem. What can we do? Let's not
throw, the sink and everything into this. Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, when you're having a really good day and you're really happy, everything that your husband or wife does is like uplifting. You love it about them. And then if you are having
a
shitty day and a problem, it's like everything annoys
don't
you. Everything they do, it's like, don't breathe next to me, you know?
Especially when women, when we're on our cycle, we're like, don't even try me right now.
Yes, exactly.
Like I'll cut a bitch.
Yeah.
So I think keeping that in mind is super important. I definitely think that finding, and you have to realize everybody has their own unique balance. What works for one couple may not work for another couple. What works for one set of rules for somebody might not work. You have to establish your own boundaries with what works in your relationship and then stick to those boundaries.
Yeah.
And the worst thing is, I think what couples get wrong is, and I think women do this a lot, they compare their relationship to other people's relationship. 100%. And you cannot do that. You're two unique individuals, and men hate that when you do that. Like if I ever said that to my husband, I was like, oh, but they don't do this. He's like, stop comparing us to people. Men don't like to be compared because it makes them feel less than. Yeah. So it's always better to be like, hey, these are our parameters and these are our agreements. So one thing Faizan and I have started doing in the beginning of the year, and we applied it this year, is that we set certain things that we want from each other. There's certain things expectations that he has of me that he'd like to see. Like, okay, can you do this a little bit more? I'd like you to be more mindful about this. Or like, these are some goals I want you to work with me on, and vice versa. This is my expectations of you. This is things I'd like. And then certain things that are kind of more individualistic, right? But we set those expectations. We write them down in the beginning of the year and we say, hey, this is a framework of things we'd like to do. Whether it's as a couple, we're planning a trip together and how we're going to budget for that trip, or things that we want to do individually and how do we approach that. And then we keep each other accountable on that. But no, we discussed this in the beginning of the year. We said we'd support each other through this and this. These are my priorities. These are your priorities. Let's have that in place. If a little argument does come up between us, I just go back and say, hey, we spoke about this at the beginning of the year. We made this agreement. We agreed to this. It's almost like I think it's like almost like I don't know why we think marriage is different to, obviously it's a lot more intimate and all that stuff, but it's also a relationship, right? So to have healthy relationships, you have to have healthy boundaries and clear set expectations.
Yeah.
So this allows us to keep each other accountable and be like, well, we spoke about this at the beginning of the year and we agreed to X, Y, and Z, and things, yes, can change, but we had an agreement about this. I already spoke to you about this.
Yeah.
And I think that allows women to, from a female approach, to voice things up front that they may be scared to share and put it out there and actually see the reaction from their partner.
And also be direct, right? Because so many times we're just like, well, he'll just get it. And like, he just won't get it. Like you have to tell them.
No, you have to be clear and transparent.
Yeah.
I have to say one thing. I feel that I do a good job at communicating. I'm very like direct with what my expectations are, what I need, what I not, where I'm able to make compromises versus there's no compromise on certain things for me. And I think over the years, Faison and me used to fight a lot in the beginning when we first got married because he's like, what? Like, you're so straightforward. Like, it was almost like, what do you mean? But now we found a rhythm that I know how he works. He knows how I work. And I think for us, at least, taking this exercise of having this top of the year, almost like it's like a you're doing a business plan for your marriage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because it's work. Like, I think people mistakenly think that, well, you get married and it's just, it's supposed to work itself.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's hard work. No matter how connected you are, no matter how in love you are, you have to put in the work because feelings are feelings. Sometimes you'll have ups, sometimes you'll have downs. You have to work to have a very strong foundation and to continue to build whatever it is that you want to build. Like, I want to have my relationship filled with passion all the time. Yeah. That's not just going to happen, you know?
Have to work
you have to work towards it. Yeah.
And I think and that's the other two things. I think two of the biggest things I think people struggle with in marriage is finances. That's probably one of the biggest reasons people fight and even end up getting divorced because there's a disagreement or not alignment on finances. And the second thing is they lose their spark.
Yes.
Like keeping that spark alive.
So that's why I say financial formula, his money is our money, my money is my money.
Correct. Thank you very much.
And for the spark, just dress your best. And make sure that, make sure that you're always putting your best looks, both of you. And to take each other on very nice dates. Mainly the man takes the woman.
Some women will listen to this and be like, these two girls. Or this is going to trigger some men. But listen, I think when it comes to finances, there's an ebb and a flow, right? Yeah. Sometimes you're doing a lot better. Sometimes they're doing a lot better. If you have respect for each other, that should not matter.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I personally am a little bit more traditional. I'm South Asian, I'm Pakistani. So I do think, yes, a man is supposed to be the breadwinner and in the marriage and all that stuff. But then my husband looks at me and also goes, dude, you work all the damn time. You are super successful in your own right. Yes, I'm totally fine to play that role, but like you also need to take accountability for yourself. And let's say you do something, one of your businesses sells, then, I expect also for you to take care of the family in some extent, which is okay, which makes sense. Yeah. But I do believe that, a man should provide and, take care of you and stuff. Yeah. But then again, it might not work for some women. Some women want to be in the driver's seat and that's also okay. It's each their own. I don't judge you for having that stance. You shouldn't judge me for my stance. And when it comes to keeping the spark alive, for me, I have to have an emotional connection with somebody. Mm-hmm. For me, the physical is a deriver from the emotional for me. So if I'm emotionally connected to you, then I'm automatically just really kind of attracted and all that stuff. So for in my marriage, one of the things we try to do is at least like communicate, keep each other, talk about things, like talk about how not just our day went, but feelings that are coming up, something that came up for me. So I can always be connected to my husband. And that for me in turn sparks
I'm the same
more
way.
of a physical attraction.
For some people, it's just strictly physical. And for me, I'm the opposite. If there's no emotional connection,
forget it.
If we're like thinking about stuff, there's going to be no physical connection.
And for me, the cuddling and the, the sweetness is also important. Faison, I come from a culture that we're a little bit more abrasive as people. Like Pakistanis are very like abrasive people and we're very like direct. And so for me in my marriage, I had to soften up a little bit and unlearn a lot of stuff that's naturally, culturally like wound in me to be like, oh, I got to be a little sweeter and a little bit softer in the way I approach things.
Well, and you probably had a similar situation to me where you have that mixed in with traditional values, mixed in with the Western values of hustling,
correct,
being independent, everything. So a couple of years ago, I was like, wait a minute, there's like some conflicting ideas and values that I have. So what's happening here and how do I make sure that I like
and the outcome that you want ultimately from your relationship.
Exactly. Because it's like, hey, very traditional family values, but also kind of a boss and aspire to be a boss Then I also have very direct communication. I'm a little too blunt at times, but also I don't believe that, like, what's happening here? You know, I was like, how do I balance all of these?
Guys.
I'm
so fucking confused.
What'd you do?
Yeah. And I think that's where the self-accountability comes in. I think for men, it's the same, you know? Things have changed so much for men nowadays. They've gone from like being like back in the day, here I'm the prime breadwinner, to being like, oh no, actually, like what's going on here? Now I'm confused. I can be with somebody who wants 50-50 down the middle. I'd be like, I'm dumping your ass and I'm better off on my own personally. But hey, whatever floats your boat.
Whatever floats your boat. And I agree with you. It also depends on situations, you know, like you were mentioning, Faizan was like, hey, you know, even just give yourself credit for the fact that you also run a, you know, you run a business, you make your own money and stuff like that. And I talk a lot about traditional. It's not even almost about like the situation that you're in right now. It's almost just in general. Like somebody brought that up to me. I can't remember who it was on my podcast. Like if shit was to hit the fan, what roles would you default to?
Right.
That's what it comes down to, right?
I think it all depends on the position you're in.
Mm-hmm.
If shit hits the fan, one of you loses your career or your job. Like it just, I think a marriage is, a successful relationship is when you know when to both of you know how to step in and out of your supporting roles, right?
Yes.
Like you're meant to be always supportive to your partner, where sometimes you can step in more and hold space for the other person and vice versa. There's no hard set rules.
Yeah.
There are times that you're going to be able to, like, the other person needs you a little bit more and vice versa. There are times that the other person has to step in for you a little bit more. So I think knowing that things ebb and flow and nothing is super rigid might be how at least I approach it.
I agree with you. And also just knowing like what, if this situation was to happen, like the prime example that I think about, I don't really see myself as a stay-at-home mom.
Thank God you just brought that up.
Like
I think nothing would give me more anxiety than having to stay home personally. But there are women who kill it at that. But I
exactly. But I also don't want to be in a situation where if something was, you know, for example, my mom was a doctor. Mm-hmm. She still is, but she was working in like cardio surgery.
Right.
And then she had kids and she was like, I thought that was going to be my whole life. And I'm not going to want. And then when she had kids, she was like, oh my God, I actually want to spend more time with my children. So she had that switch of like, you know what? Like I actually kind of changed my mind a little bit. So it almost goes back to, again, like the situation of like, what are you going to default to and what are you going to be ready for if a situation changes and you change your preferences, let's say, right?
That's okay though.
It's okay. Exactly.
I think you just have to have that conversation with your partner. I hate like running and managing a house. Like I think it's like I'm
really bad at cleaning.
No. I can't do domestic chores. Like I tell him, I was like, I will pay somebody for this shit. I do not care. I cannot do it. Yeah. I would rather be on 20 conference calls back to back, but I can't just do it. It irritates me to my core. I just don't want to do it. Yeah. So I know like from that perspective, hey, that's a compromise. He knows that I'm like, I'll pay for that. I'm not doing it. Yeah. Okay. But it's knowing that things can change and being okay with that, but always having those conversations with your partner. For me right now, where I stand is I love working. I think I'm always going to love working. I think I love having a career. Maybe when we have kids, I maybe don't wake up first thing at 8 a.m. and go to my phone. Maybe my priorities will shift, but I don't know if I'll ever be the person who wants to be a stay-at-home mom. There's nothing wrong with it. Just I need this outlet and I thrive with social interaction and I love going to work. But yeah, there's an optionality that I can change. And I think you shouldn't shit on women either way. If you want to be a stay-at-home mom, kudos to you and amazing for you that fulfills you. And if you don't want to do that, also kudos to you. I don't think there's anything wrong with one or the other.
Yeah, exactly. And we should be more respectful of the choices.
And being okay with it.
Exactly, being okay with that. Yeah, I agree with you. I've had so many times I would talk to stay-at-home moms and they would say, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. And I'm like, you're never just a stay-at-home mom. Like running a household is a lot of work. I know women who went back to work just so that they don't stay at home because it's crazy.
I think raising kids is a very, very, very big responsibility. Huge. Right? It's a huge responsibility. It's
arguably the biggest responsibility. You're literally raising humans.
It's hard. It's hard running. Like it's really hard. So you know what it is? You choose your hard.
Yes.
You choose your hard. You choose which hard you want to go for. I think I'm going to choose the hard. I'm like, I'm going back to work. Thank you very much. But you choose your hard. You choose which hard you want to go with. 100%. Because it's both hard.
100%. Yeah.
This has been really fun. Thank you for doing this with me again.
Thank you for inviting me. I love it. I love this podcast and this space, and you're a fantastic host.
And you're a fantastic guest. I think you always have so many great nuggets and insights. And I just think it's giving women who listen to this just a different perspective on, keeping ourselves accountable, having healthy boundaries, not shaming people on social media.
Maybe you should listen to your intuition. I'm not talking about like you're crying in the corner and everybody. No. I'm talking about like the feeling that you're getting. Like this is a really actually great conversation. Yeah, we know when intuition talks to us. I'm really, really big on that. If you look back in any situation, not even relationships, but any situation, you knew what to do in that moment.
Absolutely. You just have to really start listening to your gut. And I think we touched on some things that are really important, at least to me also, is not shaming people on social media, not attacking people for no reason. Don't hide behind a screen and be that coward. Things that don't make social media a toxic place for yourself, for other people around you. And if you are having certain emotions that are coming up for you, take a break, go off it. Yeah. Just be a mindful, respectful human beings and understand other people's boundaries and respect those boundaries.
Yes. Agreed.
Don't be a troll.
Don't be a troll. Be a good person.
Be a decent human being. Thank you for doing this. Let's go have some lunch.
Let's go have some lunch.